Welcome to Extension Connection on Super Talk 1270. Thoughtful information and discussion with experts from both Burleigh and Morton County Extension Service offices. Extension Connection provides advice on family nutrition, issues in agriculture, lawn and garden, community leadership, flood recovery, homeowner concerns, and so much more. Live from the Super Talk 1270 News Studio, this is Extension Connection.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Tyler Kralicek, the Ag and Natural Resources Agent from Burleigh County, and I'm joined with Amelia Doll.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Amelia Doll. I'm the 4-H and Youth Development Extension Agent over in Burleigh County.
So today we're going to talk about a number of different topics that range from 4-H to some cleanup, talk about the Farm Bill, as well as another program with managing your cows here this winter that'll make life a little bit easier for you producers out there.
Sounds like a great program. We have a few events coming up in the next couple weeks here in Bismarck that 4-H will be at. Our first one we have is the Sportsman's Expo. It will be a great opportunity at the Bismarck Civic Center to visit with a variety of vendors and clubs. 4-H is going to be there running the archery shoot. So Burleigh and Morton County will be doing the archery shoot, and that's open to kids and adults. So if you have kids who like archery, are interested in possibly joining our archery program, it is a great place to come and check us out there at the Civic Center.
And what days are those again?
It is Friday from 2 to 7:30 and Saturday from 9 to 5.
And that's the 24th and 25th,
yes.
Not this weekend.
Not next this weekend, next weekend. Yep, we're just giving you a little bit of heads up on that event that's coming up.
Cool. Well, so what other events? You talked about archery. Aren't there some other ones that are involved with 4-H from a shooting perspective?
Yes, we also have a shotgun club, and they are just getting rolling this year. I know it's kind of hunting season, so people are starting to bust out the bows and the shotguns. These are open to kids who have experience, who've never shot before. Our only requirement for shotgun is that you've gone through hunter safety. We just need a copy of that card to make sure that the other kids and our instructors are safe while you're practicing. But I know archery has become really big with the Hunger Games, and that movie's coming out again next month. So if you have kids who would really like to do that, give us a call at the Bismarck Burleigh County Extension Agent office, and we'll get you hooked up with our leaders.
And that number there is 221-6865.
Yep. So some other events that we have coming up next Saturday, which is the 25th as well, is our Zoo down at the Dakota Zoo. So 4-H will be there as well. Come down, get some candy, learn about 4-H. There's a lot of different community partners there as well for that program.
Yeah, it's a really fun day. I was lucky enough to be part of that last year, and we had a little booth set up with a spook trailer, I guess you'd call it, where kids could come in and get some candy. And yeah, there was over 4,000 kids last year, and they're talking at least 4,500 this year. So if you want to be part of the madness that is the Zubu, it's a wonderful experience. Get to go out and get some trick-or-treating done, as well as see some of the awesome animals that are down there at that Dakota Zoo.
Yep, and this is a fundraiser for the Dakota Zoo. So there is an admission fee, but it's a good opportunity to take your family out. The weather has been so nice around here that it's nice to have an opportunity to be outside enjoying the last few days of non-snow that we have here.
Well, very good. What other things do we have going on at the office, Amelia?
We have our 4-H kids are actually in the process of continuing their food drive. We had our year-end event here a few weeks ago with our fun night, and the kids collected over 1,000 items for our food drive, for community action in Bismarck. And so I turned the challenge back to them and told them to double that number. And I know that they're out doing it and collecting a lot of items. So if you see kids out getting items for the food drive from 4-H, please consider donating. I've told them to go out trick-or-treating, dress up as 4-H members, and go out and get those items. So if you see them out there, please support them.
So how do you dress up as a 4-H person, I guess, or a 4-H member?
You put your 4-H shirt on with your clover and your khaki pants. I mean, it doesn't get much easier than that.
Khaki pants. What about black pants? Isn't that a little bit more 4-H dress code there?
Yeah.
4-H agent. Okay, just checking with you.
I was making sure you knew what you were doing, Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for reminding me. All right. So what else do we got? I know there's more than that. You guys have all kinds of stuff.
We have a lot of stuff. It's the time of year of recruitment. So if you have kids that you've thought about getting into 4-H, I know that a lot of times when I tell people, oh, I work for the extension agency and I'm the 4-H person, they say, oh, so you do a lot with cattle and horses, and I live in town, so I can't have a sheep. The wonderful thing about 4-H is you don't have to have livestock. That is a part of our program, but since Bismarck is such a big part of our county, we do have a lot of kids who do not have the opportunity to have livestock. So they can do anything from bring your cat in is one of for Small Animal Day.
Small Animal Day, we do have a lot of people who bring in cats and dogs, and I think a guinea pig even won this last year. A hamster.
Hammy the hamster.
Yeah. So
he received best pet.
Yeah, he didn't bite the judge, which I guess is uncommon. So it was,
I guess he's a pretty well-behaved hamster.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great. So.
But even if you're not into having animals, there's a lot of projects, whether you want to sew or quilt or do anything like that, there's opportunities for you. We have a communications group that does speeches and
communication arts that happens in the spring. I know that's a big thing that a lot of people are getting into. If you want your students, or if they're not 4-H members, you want them to join, become better at public speaking, it's a great opportunity for them to prepare a speech, give demonstrations, and that event actually happens in the spring. So your kids would have the opportunity to really practice up and get everything put together, so that way they can come in and just wow the judges as well as everyone else.
Exactly. And I know some of the teachers last night at the teachers conferences. Thank you. You're conferences welcome. Said that their kids get extra credit for doing speeches outside of class. So it's a good opportunity to get the practice, get a little extra credit for it, and have fun all at the same time.
Yep, absolutely. What else can some of these more urban kids that don't have a whole lot of space do? I know that there's a lot of urban kids who really like horses. Seems to be another one of the big fascinations is horses. And unfortunately, you have to have quite a bit of space to have a horse. And we actually have a hippology club, which hippology is the study of horses. And so they come and they learn about horses and use that information in competition. So it's a really great way for kids who may not otherwise be able to get that information to be able to work with other kids who like horses as well. Right. I know I sat in on one of their practices that they had, and oh man, the stuff that they go over. They talk about anything from, the skeletal system to the digestive tract, also talking about different tack if you're interested in maybe being a saddle maker someday, learning the components of how that thing is put together in each individual piece. So as well as they, talk about communication, they do have a portion that involves, a public presentation where you're talking to the judge about, you're given a situation, you have to say, okay, so your horse has this ailment. How do you solve it? And it's the kids, based on their background information, that will, bring that information forward to that judge. It's an amazing event that really works well for not only giving kids a lot of knowledge, but also building some confidence. It's a great program.
The whole 4-H program really works on building confidence, communication, public speaking, and it's really a great program to get kids involved in. And kids from as young as 5 up until 18 can be involved in our county program. So I really encourage them to be involved.
Well, very good. So what else do we got going on?
I think we're going to take a quick break here.
Okay.
And then we'll be back with some more events we have coming up.
Sounds good. And we're back with the Extension Connection. Again, I'm Tyler Kralicek from the Burleigh County Extension Office.
And I'm Amelia Doll, also from Burleigh County. We were talking a little bit before the break about some events that we have coming up with 4-H. Just a few more that we have coming up. It is kind of a busy year as we get new members recruited. We have some project days coming up that are open to anybody, and you don't have to be a member of 4-H. So if you have kids who maybe are interested in checking out 4-H but don't really want to take that leap into joining 4-H, this is a good opportunity to see what our projects are all about. In November, we have one coming up on the 17th at 6 p.m. And we're going to have a 4-H member and her mom teaching kids how to do macrame. This is an example of all the unique things that you can do in 4-H. So that's going to be, again, November 17th at 6 o'clock at our office over on Expressway. If you're interested in signing up, you can just call our office, and our number is 221-6865. And then in December and January, we actually have a 2-part film festival project days. The first one is going to be learning how to use the equipment and what all goes into the actual shooting when you're doing a film. And then in January, we're going to do the editing portion of it. So this is, again, open to any kid 10 or older in the county who's interested in learning about videography. So if you're interested, please contact our office. We're constantly adding new program days, so those can all be found on our website, our Burleigh County Extension website. And then in addition to project days, we also have the TSC paper clovers. They're up for sale at TSC up in North Bismarck. All of the proceeds will go to 4-H and will be split among state, county, and national 4-H programs. So we would encourage you and really appreciate your support going up to TSC, just adding an extra $1 onto your tab, and that money will go directly to 4-H. We actually have one of our clubs, the Silver Colts, will be up there on Sunday promoting 4-H. They have some fun activities for kids and some handouts for parents about 4-H. So check that out.
Yep. So please come to Tractor Supply this weekend. So
yeah. And then just looking forward, I know I've mentioned a lot of programs, but some of the programs that are on the docket for hopefully this summer we have Lego Robotics, which is a class that National 4-H really has promoted. So if you have kids who love to play with Legos, and I don't think I've met any kid in that 10 to 14-year-old range that doesn't at least enjoy playing with Legos, and I don't think I've ever met a parent that doesn't despise stepping on those Legos. So we have Lego Robotics, and that's going to hopefully be this summer, where kids will learn about building robots, and then we actually get to program them on the computer. So it's a really cool project for kids to get to do and learn how robotics work. So that's one that's coming up. We also have a lot of community service coming up. I mentioned the food drive, and this is kind of just our kickoff for the year's worth of community service. We have a lot of other things coming up. I know there's kids looking for community service, whether it's for scholarships or college applications, or maybe they got in a little trouble and they need to do some community service. So 4-H is a great way to do that, give back to the community, and also get to meet other kids in the area. So if you're interested in joining 4-H, you can give our office a call. The number again is 701-221-6865. Or you can go on to our Burleigh County Extension website and get more information there. So that's what we have going on kind of for 4-H. Tyler, what do you got for us about the Farm Bill?
okay, so actually today from 8 to 10, they had a program that was going to highlight some of the major pieces of the Farm Bill, but just kind of going through a brief idea of what each one is. This last year, we had a new one that was developed in the way of a Farm Bill that did away with a few different things. Some people were used to direct and countercyclical payments. Those things are essentially a thing of the past and have gotten replaced by a couple other different acronyms. Your PLC, which is your price loss coverage, as well as your ARC, which is your agriculture risk coverage. With the new Farm Bill, there are some things in there like dealing with cotton. Obviously, Amelia, do we deal with cotton up here?
Yes.
We wear it, and that's the extent of it. So.
And it flies around in the air.
Yeah, well, the cotton trees. I'm talking about production cotton,
yes.
like down in Texas.
No,
and
we
that
can't
neck
grow
of the
that
woods.
here. I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah, cotton and peanuts seems to be a common thing with a lot of that. But in terms of what North Dakota gets to deal with, so with your ARC payments or your program, or your PLC program, it's going to be a little bit tricky in terms of which one, as a producer, you're going to sign up for. Even if you own land, you have to work with the person that you're renting out to make sure that the program is set up and designed correctly. In the future, we're going to have different programs through our extension office that'll help producers decide if I raise corn, wheat, soybeans, oats, you wouldn't necessarily have all four of those commodities in the same exact program. You could have them split half and half between PLC as well as ARC, or 3-in-1, or whichever. So it all depends on the actual commodity in terms of which program it fits into. So knowing and understanding what each one has to contribute for each commodity is going to be extremely vital for your future success.
So is that something that the Extension office is going to be educating our producers on?
We have different educational materials. A lot of times dealing with, FSA, for example, we deal with them on this program that happened here today. And we actually went through a program with a Excel spreadsheet that lines out with what your yields are. And that's largely what most of these programs are obviously based on, which program will actually work better for you. So trying to price out with where corn's at versus, today versus where it was 3 years ago, along with yields to see, like I said, which one's going to work better for you, PLC or ARC.
Great.
So one of the things that a lot of people are kind of interested in with your adjusted gross income provisions, they're simplified and a little bit more modified. With this new farm bill, any producer who averages their AGI that exceeds 900,000 are not eligible to receive receive payments or benefits from most of these programs administered by FSA or the NRCS. A previous AGI distinguished between farms and non-farm AGI. So that's one of the things you need to talk with different agencies that you're going to be working with to make sure that that's clear within your operation. Total amount of payments received, again, the direct payments, which used to be there, are essentially being replaced more by the PLC. So trying to make sure that you, again, are signed up for the right coverage is going to be absolutely crucial for your future success. So kind of talking about each one a little bit more in depth. So the PLC, or the price loss coverage, are payments that are issued when the effective price of a covered commodity ends up less than the respective reference price for whichever commodity is at the time. So each payment is going to be equal to 85% of the base acres. So this is where if you're a landowner and you're renting out, you got to work with your renter, okay? Or even if obviously it's your own business. So it's based on the 85% of the base acres of the covered commodity. So whatever you reported is going to be highly important in this category. And basically it takes the commodity times the difference between the reference price and the effective price times the commodity program payment yield for each covered commodity. So if you have questions, that's why hopefully you guys made it to today's session. In the future, they're going to have other ones that are going on along the state. I think Langdon as well as Fargo still have one coming up. And if you have questions on that, feel free to call our office and we can get you lined out with one of those programs if you missed the one that went on in Bismarck here today.
That's good that we have that resource here, because I didn't really understand much of anything, and I think our producers really need that support with all of these new changes. Right.
Well, along with the PRC, they're also going to have the ARC. And so within that, they actually have two different ways to go with the ARC program. They actually have the county one, the county portion, or the individual one. Okay? So why is that important, you think?
I'm sure you're going to tell me.
Yeah, that's the whole plan. So if you're going on the county ARC, you're going on what the county average has been for the last few years. If you're going on an individual, you're more on your own. So there again, it's knowing your operation, and it's figuring out the cost effectiveness in terms of which program are you really going to tie into. So if you've had, poor yields the last few years, due to hail, maybe you had prevent plant, trying to make sure of, do you go with the individual ARC to make sure that, you maximize your opportunity for these programs, you might want to go individual. But there again, that's working with the agency, especially if you're at FSA or any of those other different loan departments.
Sounds like there's a lot of really great resources out there for farmers.
There are a ton of them, absolutely. So need to make sure you do a little bit more of your homework and stay up to date on what exactly it's going to cover. So just to kind of talk a little bit about each one. So with your county, again, it's going to be what the 5-year average is for the national farm price, excluding the year with the highest. and the lowest. So essentially there's 3 years that get counted, but you're figuring the last 5 years. Now, if I look at corn, for example, boy, it's going to be, pretty favorable to potentially go with either the county or individual, just based on the fact that, 4 years ago, we had $8 corn.
So we don't have that anymore.
Gosh, I wish we did for our producers' sake. However, if I'm feeding out calves on the livestock end of things, it's nice with what corn prices are right now.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a give and take relationship. But with that said, we're going to go to a break here, and we'll come back, talk a little bit more about the Farm Bill as well as some other programs that are going on.
Sounds great.
All right, we're back on the Extension Connection. Oh my
Where
goodness,
are we, Tyler?
I'm Tyler Kralicek, the egg agent in Burleigh County, and I'm joined with Amelia Doll. She's the 4-H agent over in our office in Burleigh County. So when we left, we were talking about the Farm Bill and a couple of the programs that are going to essentially be essential for producers to sign up for. We talked a little bit about PLC, how it's going to be based on where the commodity is with reference points, or the ARC program where you've got the county as well as the individual. With the county, again, you're going to go off the county's 5-year average, and then the highest and lowest are going to be knocked out, just to give you a little bit more of an ideal average. And then that's going to establish where your base price is going to be. If you go on the individual, obviously that's going to be going with your own yield that you've had over the last 5 years. It's very similar. The thing is, the individual ARC payment require that 65%, the sum of the base acres of all covered commodities, times the difference between the individual guaranteed revenue and the actual crop across all covered commodities on the farm. So it's going to be a little bit harder to actually, from what I understand, it's going to be a little harder to actually receive those payments if you do have a bad year, to where it's, if it's really extreme, then the individual is going to be the program that you'll be ready to sign up for. At the end of the day, you need to talk with your loan agent and see exactly which one is going to fit your needs the best.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like something you can just throw a dart at and hope you hit the right one. You really need to do your research and
understand what you really want to sign up for. The other thing is, make sure that you're signing up for a program, because it's highly possible if you don't sign up, I've heard people say that you will not be involved in the program. So making sure that you are not just in the right one, but also involved in one, because if not, you might not be eligible for your payments, from even last year in October when they had all those issues with the government shutdown and things. So make sure you talk to your loan officer and make sure that everybody's squared away with which program you're going to utilize. So that's one. I know the insurance is going to change. However, that's a more lengthy process, and I would highly encourage you to talk to your insurance agent about that to make sure you get a more in-depth. So a lot of things are very different in terms of your coverages as well as the different payouts that you might receive through the farm program.
Sounds like our producers have a lot of investigating to do this winter as we're getting ready for our spring planting. But in the meantime, we do have some gardening and some cleanup that needs to happen before the snow flies, don't we?
Yep, to roll into some of the things we need to do here yet this fall. Obviously, the farmers are kind of finishing up what they're doing with they haven't quite started with corn. Some guys may just barely be getting there from a harvest perspective, but the soybeans are, going full circle at a lot of people's places. Some flax is still needing to get out of the field. So, they're trying to clear out their fields. No different than a lot of people here in town or even in your gardens, trying to make sure that we're ready to roll for when winter comes around. Talking with a few people, they still have some carrots out there, which, depending on what your theory is, some people say letting a frost happen and then you pick your carrots after makes them so much better, so much sweeter. I can't argue because I've had a couple of those people bring those carrots in, and man, they taste pretty good.
Well, and I just picked my leeks this last weekend, and they were still pretty good too. So there's still those few of those root vegetables that are still good in the ground. But what do I do for my plants where I had my tomatoes and my pumpkins and all of that stuff? I
really hope for your sake the pumpkins, squash, gourds, any of those things, we're needing to pick those. I mean, it's not as it should be done like right now. We still have a little bit of time, but absolutely, if it's starting to, get to that real hard frost type conditions here pretty soon. And so trying to make sure that stuff's brought in or wherever you're going to have it outside for a jack-o'-lantern or any of those kind of things, we're going to need to bring those in. However, if you still have tomatoes hanging on the vine...
Oh, nope, I've picked those.
You either are really good at covering those darn tomatoes and you've kept them alive. Props to you. Most people have gotten their tomatoes out. I know right now the big push is for, with tomatoes especially, is green ripening. So that is not a very hard process whatsoever. The biggest thing is just making sure that you have an area laid out for them. Don't stack them all into a huge bunch. Can they still ripen that way? Sure, but it's not going to be as fast. So if you want to have those things at your disposal at the most ideal time, lay them out flat. That way they can get that air. They can ripen on your counter, so to speak, or if you've got a garage or any area like that to where they won't freeze, but they'll still be warm enough to go through that maturation process. That is highly important to make sure you have them there.
And you were saying, I think last time we were here, that to put a banana or another fruit?
Well, that's just a personal thing I'd try just for the heck of it. It's a science research. Through our job, we're always trying to do, scientific research and things like that. I do know if you have a banana next to some apples, because of the the auxins that are coming off that apple will actually make your bananas just turn brown like that. So apples... it's not just apples and oranges. It's apples and bananas. We want to keep those things away from each other if you want your bananas. However, if you're making banana bread and you want it to be really mushy like that, perfect, let her fly. But keep your apples away. So on that note, let's segue into apples.
Yes.
So apples
had a really good year this year.
Oh my goodness. Everybody I talked to, whether you thinned out your tree like you're supposed to, or if you just let her, fly and, grow like crazy. Yeah, grow like crazy. There are apples everywhere. Oh my lord! I think it's
like a zucchini. Like normally people are locking their doors because of zucchini. I feel like I need to lock my door because of apples.
Oh yeah, apples, zucchinis. I mean, in all reality, this whole year was extremely excellent for most of your growing. We didn't have the warmest season that we would have preferred, and we likewise ran into a few, fungal issues like mildew was really prominent on trees, especially. You had anthracnose and other types of fungal diseases on your leaves. But ultimately, yeah, from a produce perspective, it was absolutely excellent this year. Beans, carrots, peas did pretty well. I just was at a guy's place yesterday, and he had a 4-pound potato. Well, he had multiple. They were
potato
massive. Yeah, so
that's quite the twice baked potato.
Yeah, right.
You can feed your family with one potato.
So it's been a really good year. So with that said, we want to make sure that not just this year's successful. There's a few things we need to do going into winter to make sure that we're successful again for next year. So one of which is, everybody has either their dahlias or their irises, any of those kind of things, okay? What do we do? Amelia, do you know how to deal with that?
You trim them back, don't you?
You can trim them back. The other thing is, if I would make sure that you keep them a little bit more winterized and throw some mulch or those kind of things on there just to make sure that they're protected. Especially, okay, not just irises, but roses in particular.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. Roses are very delicate.
Very delicate. They do love their moisture. I know when I went to school out in Oregon, oh my goodness, those things grew like crazy, but they didn't get down to, 40 below from time to time like we do here. So you need to make sure that you have a wood mulch, something stocked up to where it's going to insulate that ground so it doesn't get so unbelievably cold.
So let's say, hypothetically, if I haven't mowed my lawn yet for the last time, is that can I use that mulch to put on my...
You could. Okay. But the thing is, then again, next spring, to make sure you don't have issues with mold or any of those kind of things, make sure, obviously, you uncover it. If it starts to stink, obviously, you don't like it, the rose probably won't either. So
good advice.
Yep, absolutely. So a lot of people are, trying to split those plants. We are literally at the end, based from where we want to be doing those kind of things. Transplanting like your shrubs and those kind of plants. I mean, we've been lucky because it has still maintained a pretty good temperature. We haven't gotten too much towards that freezing point, but it's on our doorstep right now. We are ready to have fall. Maybe you aren't ready, but the season is getting there. So we need to make sure if we're going to do those things, like splitting different plants, depending on what you're looking for with your peonies, any of those kind of things. We want to be really careful doing that, at this time of year. If nothing else, wait till spring. Ideally, you do that stuff in September. So moving forward, if you're doing that, don't be sad if it doesn't make it. So just, kind of prepare you for the worst.
I have somebody that I've been telling all summer not to kill their rhubarb plant because I would move it, and I've yet to move it. So I should probably
leave it.
Wait till spring?
I would wait till spring, and then you can mess with it, or even next fall. See, the thing is, you got to be proactive with these things and be excited.
I don't know what happened to September. It seems like it was here one day, and then it was gone the next.
Yeah, it's funny how that whole deal works. So
right?
Time just flies when you're having fun. So
exactly.
So with that said, if you have houseplants, okay, are you a big houseplant fan?
I cannot keep houseplants alive. I have one in my office that I'm able to keep alive. At my house, I don't know if it's my cat or my kids. They just do not go well together.
Okay. Well, that is a problem.
Right, but I have one in my office, and I've been able to keep it alive for like 3 years.
Have you tried succulents, like cactuses, those kind of things?
No.
Okay, so those things, if you're one of those that I love plants, but you don't love to take care of them necessarily, they're tough. They can take it to where you look at them and go, oh man, I haven't watered in 3 weeks. Well, obviously, hopefully it'll be a little bit more frequent than that. But they're, again, a little tougher to where they can get by with it.
They can take a little bit of neglect.
Yeah, versus like, say, a cyclamen. That one loves water. Not a lot, but just continuous light spurts of water. So it all depends on which type of program you want yourself in with your house plants, and that'll help you decide which ones you're going to utilize. So making sure we get our house plants inside if they haven't already bit the dust, so to speak. I know the geranium outside my house has not made its way inside. It is barely alive. I don't think it's going to make it. But then again,
you never know.
It's a geranium. That's another one that, most of the people I talk to are very successful with keeping that one alive. So if you want a house plant that's going to be dual purpose, outside as well as inside, I would recommend a geranium. Awesome. It's just a good little starter product. If you are okay with the smell, they do have a little bit of an odor depending on how close you want to get up and smell the flowers. But at any rate, we will continue on with this fall care discussion when we get back from break.
Sounds great.
And we're back with the Extension Connection for our last segment. I'm Tyler Kralicek from the Burleigh County Extension Office.
And I'm Amelia Doll, also from the Burleigh County Extension Office. Tyler, before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about what we need to do to prepare, not maybe ourselves, because I don't think we can ever truly prepare ourselves for winter, but preparing our land, our garden, getting our houseplants inside. You had mentioned a little bit about apple trees and how great they've been doing this year. What are some things that we need to do to hopefully get that same kind of yield next year?
Okay. We're there. With most of your trees, there isn't too much that you can do in terms of, going into fall. The biggest thing that we are going to focus on, if you put in a lot of young trees, we do have problems with different rodents, between rats, mice, as well as rabbits, who are very much a nuisance with trying to chew on that delicate wood. I mean, that is just super easy for them to get to. So
it probably tastes pretty good too.
Well, yeah, it's still pretty young, really tender. The bark isn't quite as hard as those, 30-foot trees that are really hardened off or, about 10 inches in diameter at least, if not more. So, yeah, it's a little bit easier for them to have their, afternoon snack in the wintertime. Right. So we need to make sure that we can put coverings on them. So What am I talking about with coverings? There's multiple things that people have used. One of the things, they use those plastic rounded
Like tubing?
shields. Yeah, like tubing. So some people put black. Here's my problem with putting black on there. What happens when you wear a black shirt in the middle of summertime?
You get hot.
It's really hot, right?
So are we going to have problems with mildew and mold?
Not necessarily mildew and mold, if you think about it. So you're wanting that tree to maintain the closest thing to its environment. We're trying to wrap that around there so that it is protected from rodents and those types of things. If we put a white one around there, white's not going to absorb that heat and really heat up to where you'll end up with different issues with, miscoloring or anything like that. Now, if you want to not wrap your tree with some protective, that's fine. You can. However, you are taking that risk of not just rodents, but you also run into issues potentially with sun scald. So sun scald is essentially, it's no different than when you're staring at snow, right? It's really bright. So essentially, it scalds that bark from all that reflection that's coming off that snow.
I didn't know that happened with trees.
It does happen. So, yep. And depending on which variety, I know I've seen, a fair amount of birches that do end up having it. Not saying that's a bad thing. Don't stay away from birches. They're a wonderful tree. But, I mean, that's the one I've seen more often here the last few weeks when I've been doing these different producer visits or, looking at people with tree issues.
So we kind of got to put the sunglasses on our trees, so to speak.
Yeah, so to speak. Just protect the base of those trees. The other thing, a lot of people want to make sure that they protect around that tree. Obviously, we're not going to mow lawn maybe more than once until snow flies. So making sure you have that on your trees will also help to where you're not just, I got too close to my tree and you ended up hitting it, because that's obviously going to damage the lifeline of that tree, because that xylem and phloem tissue is very important for nutrient uptake. And if you're knocking off the bark, that's essentially like if you cut off a piece of skin.
And that hurts.
Hurts like nobody's
Like the
business. And if, you're exposing it to all kinds of different elements, disease, those kind of things. So try and make sure that you take care of your tree, not just with those plastics sheeting or, any kind of wrap on that tree. The other thing is, what works wonderful is actually putting a mound around your tree. And by a mound, I mean like a mulch. Now, I'm not saying you put it 2 feet high. Only get it a couple inches, onto that tree, but make sure that it's about the root, wherever the drip line is. Works wonderful, because then you don't have to worry about getting too close into where you damage the roots if there are some that are a little bit higher on the ground, or actually getting too close and, again, dinging your tree.
Good advice.
And make sure you use wood, okay? Do not use rock. And the big reason why is moving forward, with rock, it heats up the soil, and then that heats up right next to your tree, which obviously isn't good for that soil health. Typically, you go to forests or anywhere else, in their natural environment, you aren't going to see rocks around a tree, right?
Right, you're going to see those wood chips.
You'll see the wood
natural
chips or, natural thing like grass or any of those kind of things. So it's more of a natural type environment, and it's a lot better for the tree.
So we don't need to be pruning our trees or doing anything to the tops of those apple trees.
If possible, do not mess with your apple trees at this point. That's more March, April. Right now, if you think about it, your trees are hardening off. And by hardening off, I mean they're going into almost like a hibernation mode. They're getting ready for winter. Because as we all know, in North Dakota, it can get a little chilly, a little windy.
A little?
Yeah, a little bit.
I would say a lot, Tyler.
Okay, so with that said, they need to prepare themselves no different than, animals do. So they're making sure that they're ready to go for winter. With that said, if you cut off a limb right now, you're basically taking away that protective tissue, and you're exposing it to more of a softer tissue that could, end up having some negative effects on your tree. So wait till spring, then you make your cuts. And with that said, always remember, proper pruning shear care is especially if you have an affected tree that has an issue, you have some dieback on a branch or anything like that, just to be safe, always after every cut, disinfect it with like a chlorine rinse or any kind of disinfectant, just to make sure you aren't spreading that disease, from one cut to the next, if there is.
Yeah, we don't want to continue that cycle for sure.
Absolutely not.
So is there anything else we need to be doing as we're preparing our yards, our gardens, our trees for the fall?
So you talked about your lawn. typically you want to make sure that your lawn is cut between 2 and 3 inches, and that rule still applies. What I would do if it were me, and this is what I'm planning on doing here soon, because the grass is still growing a little bit now. We've had enough warm temperatures. It's been fairly wet.
We had some rain this last weekend.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of growth yet. But sharpen those blades. Make sure it's a good cutting surface. That way it really cuts those blades off good and clean before going into winter. And if you give it about 2 to 3, closer to right at 3 or a little bit under, it actually helps out with another issue that we've had multiple calls about, which is moles, voles, and things like that. So a lot of those rodents, if you keep it at that length, it will not only help your grass for a overwinter perspective, it insulates it, it gives it enough vegetative matter or space to where it'll hopefully insulate that soil and keep it to where it's not just colder than all blue blazes, but it also won't supply so much vegetation that those different critters will come in and try and, have their buffet line in your yard.
Yeah, we don't want that, do we?
Absolutely not. Those rings and everything else become an absolute nuisance, and so to do a little prevention in the fall is going to pay dividends moving forward. The other thing, talking about voles and moles, a lot of times, especially voles and pocket gophers, they're trying to hide from different predators. So if you have wood piles or any of those things that are just sitting there, that's just providing that environment for those things to hide out. Now, if you've got a really good dog that'll take care of those things for you, then it's great. And there are some people that absolutely do. That's one of the positives to having pups. They'll get out there.
They'll take care of that.
Absolutely. So, or at least, raise enough grief with those little critters. Maybe they'll want to get out.
At least into the neighbor's yard, right?
Yeah, because that's what we want, right?
Well, they're not in your yard.
So make sure you're doing those things. So again, cut your grass for the last time of the year. Make sure it's about 3 inches tall. Hopefully a lot of you, if you guys are trying to keep that really lush, awesome lawn, you did a little fertilizing a couple weeks ago to make sure that, or about a month ago to make sure that it was set up.
Now, ideally, when I'm cutting my lawn, should I be bagging that or should I leave that mulch on the lawn for those nutrients?
There's a couple of ways to look at it. So if you have done any kind of pesticide spraying, you definitely bag it. You get rid of it. The other thing is make sure that you are not putting it, if you're like in your garden, some people will mulch that in. You don't want that in there because obviously you could have some residue issues. So personally, I just assume weeds are weeds. They're going to grow. That's just how it goes.
Part of life.
Yep, that's a part of life. And, some actual weeds, like clovers, actually provide more nitrogen. So then you think about the perspective of, well, I don't have to fertilize as much. It's clovers. A win-win.
So my yard that's covered in clovers is actually really healthy.
It's a very healthy. Yeah, you're tied up with nutrients or nitrogen. So that's the wonderful thing. So that's the good deal. So yeah, make sure that you've got a plan set in place. Take care of those young trees. You want those things to thrive and survive. So covering it with like a white plastic liner that goes around the tree. Obviously, we don't want it so snug to where if that tree starts growing in the spring and you don't take it off, that'll actually grow into the tree. I've seen that happen before, as well as your tie downs. Make sure you loosen them to where they're tight enough to where the tree won't obviously fall over, but it still has a little bit of give to move within the wind. So it builds that stability and that strength in the main trunk of that tree.
So it's not dependent on those tie downs.
Absolutely. And yes, again, double check them to make sure they're not super tight.
Anything else we have coming up at the office? Yeah.
So on the producer side, we actually are going to be in Wing on November 3rd. From 10 to 3 o'clock, we're going to be up there. The plan's to be in the Wing Theater. And it's going to be a winter beef cow management session. So NDSU, we've got a few specialists coming in. Jerry Stucca is the NDSU vet, talking about colostrum, talk about some different winter feeding strategies, talking about wind breaks, body condition scoring your cows, because you need to know if they're fat enough or in the right condition to go into winter for breed up, doing water management, vaccination, handling and storage will be talked about, as well as hay bale management. Registration for the event is $15 before November 1st. You get a lunch with it. And if you want to become BQA certified, which is Beef Quality Assurance, so giving injections in the right spot, very important for our industry, it's $15 per operation certificate or recertification fee. So it's a wonderful opportunity for you guys to, gain a little more knowledge on saving some money, getting your cows through the winter.
Sounds like a great program. All right. Well, thank you, Tyler.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Extension Connection. We will see you in a couple weeks.
Have a great day.